Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending JNUC 2022. This is IBM Notifier. Ooh, what up with that? I'm Jonathan Crower, engineering lead for the Mac at IBM program. I've been with IBM for a little over 5 years, and I'm responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operations of Mac management within the company.
And I'm Grant Klingbeil. I'm the senior manager of the Mac at IBM and Mobile at IBM programs. I've also been at IBM for a little over 5 years.
So, what's up with IBM Notifier? IBM Notifier is a fully customizable notification tool that can fit nearly any need when it comes to providing information to your employees or customers. There are multiple prompt types, from notification center alerts and banners to more traditional pop up style dialog boxes. Lots of different accessory views are baked into the app for use in pop ups and during the onboarding workflow that can give a distinctive and memorable feel to messaging. This presentation is divided into two demonstrations. The first will be to show how easy it is to make the IBM Notifier look like a product that belongs at your organization. The second is a novel approach to handling frequent notifications so that your fellow employees feel like they have some agency when it comes to the prompts that they receive. After our demonstration, you'll be able to ask us questions about it or simply tell us how terrible it is. We've provided a couple of QR codes for you. The first being a link to our GitHub repo, where you can download either a fully signed and notarized version of the app ready for deployment, or the source code so that you can alter it to your environment, which we'll show you how to do in just a moment. Additionally, you can view documentation on the product and download code samples from the GitHub wiki. The second QR code is a link to last year's presentation where we introduced the IBM Notifier app to the community. It also includes a couple scripting ideas. The demonstration code that we'll be presenting on today is available for download as supplemental material in the JNUC 2022 portal. And now here's a few goofy prompts that I wanted to make to fill up some time and show off my keynote transition skills. I'm now going to throw to Grant so that he can talk about app customization and branding.
Thanks, John. In order to build our own custom version of the IBM Notifier, we'll need to download the project from the GitHub link mentioned before and import it into the IDE of our choice. In this demonstration, we'll be using Apple Xcode since it's easy to use. We'll also need to have our developer certificates from Apple. A link to the documentation for how to install those certificates will be at the end of the presentation. And we need about 15 minutes, which will make the changes and then build our app for signing and notarization. First, we'll go to GitHub and download the latest version of the source code. In this video, we'll be working directly out of downloads, but you can move the folder wherever you want. Double-click on the Notification Agent project file, and it will launch Xcode app for you by default. You may need to manually approve opening the project depending on your gatekeeper settings. When we click on Notification Agent, we'll see the targets for the app listed in the editor pane. The first things that we'll want to change are the binary bundle identifiers. In this case, we're switching IBM to John.Nick. We'll also change the versions, and we'll change the target names. You may decide that you want to keep the same versioning, which is perfectly fine. These will be the names of the 5 binaries within the app bundle when the project is compiled. Your bundle identifier can be whatever you like, but you may want to keep it similar to the default bundle identifiers provided in the project. I highly recommend at this point you make a checklist for all of these changes. I may have forgotten 1 or 2 when I was recording my demo, but luckily John's recording saved the day for me. Each of these targets represents a specific style of notification that would get called by the main target, which in our demo is going to be Nick Notifier. Once we're done with all of these changes, it's always a good idea to do a quick scan through and make sure that you're happy with them and that they're consistent. John definitely had his checklist before making his recording. Once we're done reviewing our changes, the next thing that we'll do is navigate to the Notification Agent Shared Model Common and select the app component Swift file. Here, we'll want to change the bundle names and the identifiers again, just like we did with the targets previously. We can use the keyboard to navigate, and the bundle names that we need to change are at the top of the file. The bundle identifiers are going to be just below. Once we have the binary renames out of the way, we'll also be able to optionally customize the default title for the pop-up prompt. The name for this does not need to be the same as the binary targets that we changed previously. To change this, we'll navigate to the Resources folder and select the localizable file. This name is also customizable with the prompt parameter when interacting with the binary if you choose not to customize it here. Then we'll click on Assets and select the app icon in the editor, where we see the default IBM Notifier icons in varying sizes. We're going to use some pre-built icons, but we've included a script that will build an icon deck for you in the supplemental material for this presentation. Simply select all the images and drag over the top to replace the existing ones. The last change we'll make before building the app will be to replace the default prompt icon. We'll select the Notification Agent Pop-ups folder and then Assets. Open the Common folder in the Editor pane and select the default icon file. This icon shows up for pop-up style prompts and can be different from the app icon. You also have the option of using different styled icons for light or dark mode. Similar to the default prompt, this icon can be replaced with a command line parameter. Now that the custom branding is complete, we can start the build process. Click on Product and then Archive to begin. This will only take a few moments to complete, and assuming that there are no errors, in the organizer window will automatically appear. While we wait for this to complete, we'd like to point out that after opening Xcode for the first time, you may notice the project dependencies are automatically downloaded on the left-hand side. In this video, we've already got the downloaded dependencies, but it should only take a few minutes to come down if this is your first time running through. You can edit the project while this is occurring, but you'll be unable to archive the app until the downloads are complete. In the organizer window, we'll click the Distribute App button to begin the signing and notarization process. Follow the prompts selecting Developer ID and Upload. Next, select the development team associated with your Apple Developer Cert, and then enter your credentials to allow access to Keychain for signing. I typically select Allow Always at this step to avoid multiple keychain prompts. Finally, click the Upload button to send it off to Apple for verification. This process generally takes between 3 to 5 minutes, so while we wait, we'll talk a little bit about signing certificates. If you're signing with a personal Apple ID instead of an organizational one, you may need to approve the terms and conditions for App Store Connect. You can find these by signing into the developer portal and selecting the App Store Connect menu in the sidebar to your left. Note that you don't have to provide any type of billing information because this app will not be distributed through the App Store, but the terms and conditions still apply and must be accepted before signing can continue. Also note, if you're requesting a personal developer account, which costs about $100 in the US, that can take a day or two for Apple to approve and provide access to your developer certificates. Once you have your certs, either through your organization or your personal Apple ID, you can simply sign into that Apple ID within Xcode to have access to those signing profiles for this app. With that out of the way, you may have seen during the demonstration video, we closed the organizer window and then reopened it by clicking Window, Organizer. This was due to the test machine not updating the status of the app while the window was open. We're not entirely sure if this was expected or not, but once we reopened it, we can get more details on what step the approval process is at. Closing the organizer window does not affect the approval process, so feel free to close it, go get a cup of coffee, do something, come back and check it in a few minutes. So at this point, we updated our bundle names and our identifiers, optionally the version, the bundle icon, as well as the default prompt icon, and the title. Since IBM Notifier is open source, if you find that you're happy with our icon, there's no need to replace it. This whole process will end up taking less than 10 minutes once you get familiar with it, as our unedited video with our few typos demonstrates. It's easy to make changes and run the process again to generate the app if you would like to re-upload. Assuming that the app was signed and notarized successfully, we reopen Organizer and select it to export the notarized app. In this example, we just save it to the desktop, at which point you're free to package it in Composer or whatever your app of choice for distribution via Jamf Pro. We'll then go into Terminal and move into the desktop directory where we saved our app. Here we run CodeSign command against the app bundle to verify that we have a signature successfully stapled to the app. To validate the signature, we're looking to make sure that the authority fields have the developer ID and the team identifier listed. An unsigned app will not have the authority fields, and the team identifier will say not set. Now, we move into the app bundle itself to make it easier to call the notification binary. The built-in help documentation works, and despite a few typos, which are going to lead me to a feature request, I think, for Simone, we're able to draw a pop-up prompt that shows both of our default titles and icon have been updated. I'll now turn it over to John to discuss a scripted workflow utilizing Jamf Pro.
So, how can we store this information in our example prompt? We could use a local plist to house this information. That would make it relatively easy to read and write the data that we need for this prompt and any future prompts if you intended to expand upon this framework. But what if we wanted to store this somewhere that we could later use for policy scope? Well, we would need to create an EA script to read this plist and stick the information on which prompts have been configured for suppression into the computer object, and then create a smart group to filter devices based off of that criteria. The opt-out prompt itself is not too complex of a script to write. In our sample picture here, you can see that we've separated out both the prompt and notification suppression check into a couple of functions. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the prompt function, but the notification check requires a bit of a breakdown. First, we need to see if the plist and/or the do not notify array exists on the machine. If not, we'll create the empty array for use in this prompt and any future prompts. Next, assuming that the user clicks the checkbox, we'll read that value we captured and it will be recorded into the plist as a dictionary object. The key for this object will be a string that's easy to identify for us and a more friendly name that can be displayed to the end user as the value. It's important to note here that as we will be demonstrating an EA for scoping this prompt, the script that we've provided does not prevent the prompt from reappearing on opt-out devices, as it's expecting that the policy scope will take care of that. If you don't intend to use an EA, you'll need to adjust your script to avoid accidentally messaging people that have specified that they don't want to be bothered. So, how do we get it to the end user? Now that we have a script to display a prompt and potentially record the choice made by them, we'll need to create a method to deliver that script. We'll be using a Jamf Pro policy with an embedded script in this case. A recon payload will ensure that we grab our plist settings and store it in the Jamf Pro console. In the screenshot here is an example EA. It will record any plist settings on the device that we can use as criteria for the smart group. We also wrote our demonstration scripts to utilize policy script parameters so that if we wanted to make this a more generic prompt for multiple policies, we don't have to create duplicates of the same script. The new policy can be cloned from the previous one, and we simply adjust the parameters of the script for notification key, friendly name value, and not to mention potential strings for the prompt itself. And finally, let's talk about policy scope. Since we're using an EA to gather these values, we'd likely set a scope exclusion for that smart group in the EA policy. In the policy, excuse me. Frequency can be whatever you like, but keep in mind notification fatigue. It may not be your best interest to run a prompt on every check-in, instead opting for once a day or weekly. Well, this is great and all for allowing the user to ignore prompts that we've provided them, but how could we handle the user wanting to reset those changes? Let's have a policy in self-service that allows the employee to change whether they want to receive prompts that they've previously suppressed. In the screenshot, you can see that there are a couple more functions. The first will look to see if the plist exists and if it has any values. If the prompt exists, then our function will iterate through them, building a string using the friendly name value that we had mentioned earlier. The string will be fed into a checklist accessory view for IBM Notifier. Once the accessory view is built, we'll pop the notification to the user so that they can view and clear whatever suppressed flags they had set. The second function is a lot more simple. It just loops through any selections that may have been passed by the prompt exit and deletes the offending dictionary object from the array based on dictionary key. I'll now quickly demonstrate all the pieces that we've just discussed. Okay, here we go. In this example, we're calling the prompt policy directly from terminal just to speed up the demonstration. As you can see here, our employee has just been interrupted by NIC notifications. It seems they've thrown caution to the wind and are opting out of any future warnings about local storage space. The script is complete now and we're waiting for a recon. I apologize for the lengths of this and any future recons you'll see in this video. At this point, I have a decision to make. I can keep talking to fill up the dead air or choose awkward silence as we collectively wait for this process to speed up. Okay, now we'll run the policy again, just to confirm that the device is no longer in scope due to the EA and smart group. Looks good. Let's flip over to self-service and execute our prompt reset policy. So it seems like our user has suppressed several other notifications. So how convenient that they're opting back into our disk space prompt that we used earlier. While we wait for the recon on this policy to complete, I'd like to mention that IBM Notifier now supports checklist accessory views being checked by default. So you could potentially reverse the workflow we're showcasing here and have all the boxes checked, and your prompt indicate that they should uncheck the ones that they want to reset before continuing. All right, I think we're almost finished and done. We're going to run this policy again just to confirm that our previous selections have been reset. Great, we're down to 2 suppressed prompts, so the disk space policy should now be in scope. And time for another recon. I hope you all aren't as nervous as I am. I haven't seen this video before. This better work, or Grant said I'd have to move my desk back into the basement. Since you're a captive audience, I think I'll take this opportunity to share a fun fact about Nicolas Cage. Did you know that he once owned a 2-headed snake he called Harvey Dent? Batman fans will likely know that Harvey Dent is the supervillain Two-Face. And now we're going to switch back to terminal and trigger the demo prompt one more time. And there we go. We can see we're able to annoy this user with pesky messages about disk space. Thank you for being patient, Grant. Back to you.
Thanks, John. For more information on app development in general, you can view the following QR codes for Xcode documentation as well as the Apple Developer Portal. Additionally, you can hang out with us at the Mac at IBM open source channel on Mac Admin Slack. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's session and would like to see how other organizations have started to leverage IBM Notifier, make sure that the IBM Notifier panel, ID 1174, is on your agenda for tomorrow. Have a good JNUC.